Murder mysteries are all the rage these days, and a far cry from the Murder, She Wrote TV series that I grew up with. Those older stories played out more like Scooby-Doo episodes, in which each crime provided a sleuth with new puzzles to solve. Puzzles which somehow never really disrupted the everyday rhythm of the detective's life or that of their community. While more recent whodunits, like the remake of Murder on the Orient Express or Knives Out, do provide modern audiences with entertaining, seasonal escapism, streaming television now offers us an abundance of more realistic and compelling miniseries in which death strikes instead like a meteor falling into a pool of lava, spreading pain on everyone within reach. In many of these more extended storylines, violence steals the life of a young person, providing the couple who brought that life into the world with their ultimate relational test. They must somehow give one another the freedom to mourn in their own individual way without losing track of one another altogether. Usually, the death reveals a number of other pre-existing problems lurking beneath the surface, further complicating the survivor's struggle. Somewhere along the way, a secondary character inevitably remarks that marriages rarely survive the loss of a child, leaving the grieving couple to either illustrate this grim principle or defy it. I can only begin to imagine the horror of such a loss. Tracy and I genuinely enjoy spending time with both of our girls, the years having developed in us a deep and abiding respect for both of their very different, unique sensibilities. Quirky in-jokes, exciting sporting events, mesmerizing music recitals, stacks of novels read aloud together, raw and honest conversations, painful injuries followed by long recoveries, and heavy fears, struggling, wrestling with joy. All of these things have twined them about our hearts in ways that feel inextricable. The very idea of a premature death staggers me, flipping my stomach as I recover those hollowed out moments, those intervals of time we've all experienced, waiting late at night for someone to check in. What if they never did? At the same time, I refuse to believe that any catastrophe, however tragic, comprises a silver bullet sure to find a relationship's vital organs. It all depends on the foundation on which our romance sits. If we've dug no deeper than the admittedly rich soil of family, then the Apostle Paul's observation that love never fails is going to feel highly contingent. Maybe love never fails, as long as our family's well-being, our job, and our own health remain constant. I'm Paul Marchbanks, and this is Digging in the Dirt, with the last entry in a series entitled Beyond the Honeymoon, Romance 101. Today's talk is marriages that can survive murder. The relationship which collapses underneath a crisis, dissolving into violent accusations or increased distance and apathy, likely has been already weakened over time by inadequate attention to all those facets of love which we've been discussing. To review, the Apostle Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 13 that love is patient and kind, virtues that require us to actively pursue greater knowledge of our loved one if we wish to love them well where they're at. Patience is much easier when we can anticipate the various idiosyncrasies characteristic of our beloved. And our attempts to be kind are much more likely to hit the target when we understand them fully, knowing what is likely to be received as kindness. The apostle then proceeds to write that love does not envy and does not boast. Paul appears to be trying to pull us out of our competitive, combative mindset, a frame of mind which tends to flatten others into two-dimensional representations of themselves, into adversaries. When we focus instead on our own faults, we allow humility to balance healthy self-confidence, pulling us both onto a more even, level playing field. Love, Paul explains next, is neither proud nor rude. Learning to genuinely respect our partner's differences instead of mocking them whenever we're with our friends or merely putting up with those differences, which can prove just as demeaning and deadly, requires considering new possibilities. There's always more than one way to do a good thing well, and we can learn a lot from our beloved when we open our eyes and ears. In an era that values success more than service, it's hard to swallow Paul's next observation that love is not self-seeking. Survival requires thinking first about yourself, doesn't it? And if we don't constantly assert ourselves, how are we supposed to guarantee that a relationship is equitable? Paul's wisdom reminds us that whatever roles we each play in a relationship, mutual submission should be the order of the day. The Apostle Paul's next piece of advice seems even more incredible. Love is not irritable nor resentful, or in another translation, love keeps no record of wrongs. Instead of playing back the ways in which our beloved has injured us on an endless loop, apparently we should hold those memories loosely. Admit to and be open about our hurt? Yes, but not turn our injury into a sharpened weapon we use to pin our beloved to the wall. If God can forgive us, surely we can try to forgive others. The subsequent observation that love does not delight in evil but rejoices in the truth seems rather obvious and bland until we remember that humanity loves to see truth as subjective, as highly variable. Paul calls us to seek out the divine source of absolute truth, a God who reaches out to us through scripture and beauty, hardship and loss, so that we can face, lovingly, important truths about God, ourselves, and others, including our beloved. The next pieces in Paul's definition take us into a spiritual stratosphere where it's incredibly hard to breathe, employing words like never and, depending on your translation, always or all. The NIV declares that love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, and caps this off with love never fails. The ESV reads, love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things, love never ends. I've met a number of people recently who have suggested that because of these absolutes, this entire description of love has little to say about human love and everything to say about God's perfect agape love for humanity. I just met a really smart guy last week who thinks we should stop reading this passage at weddings because it is largely irrelevant to marriage. I'm not so sure. In fact, I'm definitely not. Paul elsewhere suggests that spouses should love their beloved as Christ loved the church, sacrificially. I think holding this incredibly high standard of 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8 in front of the lifelong romance can be incredibly useful. If we are constantly aspiring to do better, to reach higher, we're more likely to create a relationship that can not only survive all the trauma that life is going to throw at it, but one which will actually flourish.